Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode in our series of 30 episodes in 30 days. 30 Days of Springsteen, we're calling it. And joining me today is a returning guest. We talked, I guess it's been about a year and a half since the last time you joined me, Alex.
Yeah, it has been that. Yeah, a lot of changes in that time.
A lot of changes, absolutely. Alex Markham is here. And Alex, why don't you for those of you who have not listened a year and a half ago, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Okay, I took early release from my corporation around about 10 years ago, and I took that opportunity to never work for a corporation again and to move after a few other things into writing. So I predominantly do a lot of writing. I did try fiction, but these days I tend to write on platforms like Medium and Substack about rock music,
Mhm.
particularly classic rock. And Springsteen comes into that a lot because he's my, if you like, joint number one favorite since 1975. I'm also a musician. I did used to play in a band many years ago, and the redundancy package of 10 years ago has enabled me to return to that and pick up the guitar more often now, just for fun. But I also taught myself piano in that time, and so I'm reproducing Springsteen and the Beatles and things for my lucky wife.
Yeah, very nice. That is good. Did you get to see any of Bruce on the recent tour?
I saw Bruce just before we spoke last time, 18 months ago, in Hyde Park
Yeah.
in London with
Yes.
my son, the second generation of Springsteen fans, before returning
Nice.
before returning to his house to watch videos with the third generation of Springsteen fans, my 18-month-old grandson. I didn't go to see Springsteen this year. He he increased the cost by about 200%. And since I just moved countries from Spain back to London,
Yeah.
£200, which must be about what, $250 or something, was a little steep. However, I do have tickets for his concerts in the UK next year. He's not playing London, but he's playing Liverpool. And the prices have gone back to the previous costs. I don't know what happened there, which is good.
That is
And
good.
I can do Springsteen and then a Beatles tour.
Hmm. Yeah. Super. I am glad as always, to have you join me, Alex. I love reading your articles. Tell us what album you decided you want to talk about.
I decided to talk about working on a dream. I chose this one for a couple of reasons. One, I did write an article on it on Medium a couple of years ago because I felt it was a very misunderstood album.
Hmm.
And whilst I don't claim it's Born to Run, Darkness River, those kind of all-time rock classics,
Yeah.
it's an album that I probably play more than many of the Bruce albums, perhaps in my top five in terms of plays. I find it an easy album to listen to. It's more upbeat if you fancy not being depressed or something and you want
Yeah.
some fun. And I love 60s music, and it's very much has a 60s vibe. So that's the reason for choosing Working on a Dream.
Yeah. I actually think that there are, and we're going to break it down.
Yeah.
This feels that a lot of people tend to, because it's between and Wrecking Ball and these others, that it feels a little bit at times misunderstood and forgotten. Not quite as much as High Hopes, but still something I do. So that is awesome. Can you remember when you heard this was coming out, and what were your initial thoughts when you listened to it?
I remember this coming out because I heard the single, Working on a Dream single,
Yeah.
which was released slightly beforehand, wasn't it? In
Hmm.
oh, December 2008, I think, something like
Yeah.
that. I don't buy singles, um, not since I was a teenager. I
Yeah.
like the thematic flow of an album.
Sure.
So, as with all my other albums, I waited for the release, which was a month or two later in 2009.
Yeah.
To be honest, I loved it from the beginning. And as an album, I like the catchiness of it. And as an album, as I mentioned earlier, I found it quite upbeat and optimistic.
Hmm.
And I like optimism.
Yeah.
And whilst it may not have the resonance of The Rising, for example, for many people, or The River, in terms of the theme, or Darkness, for example, the theme of kind of optimism or turning a corner or rationalization of your
Yeah.
aging, it hit a nerve. So I liked it from the very beginning.
Yeah. I did too. And there are a couple of songs that I really care about. There's, as most albums, there are songs that I don't like as much as others. But overall, I do think it is, as always, I think there's joy in every Springsteen release, and you can find a little bit. Alex, my guests have been doing this a little two different ways. Some of them have been going track through track. Others have just been generally picking a few songs to talk about that they really love, and then discuss maybe songs that you don't think has worked as well. Dealer's choice, which one would you like to do?
I'm going to go for, if it's okay, the talking about the album generally, which we touched on, and
Okay.
then picking some tracks to demonstrate
Okay.
why I think it's an
Then
album worth revisiting.
let's go. That sounds perfect.
Okay, I touched on the idea that what I liked about the album was its 60s feel. And I
Mhm.
very much like 60s music, particularly British 60s music, because I was a young child at that period and I was brought up
Yeah.
with that. So there is an emotional attachment to that, particularly the Beatles, Kinks, and things like that. I'd say that Working on a Dream was probably the third of a 60-ish type trilogy. If we
Yeah.
ignore the themes, you've got The Rising, you've got Magic, and Working on a Dream kind of was the third. So this is his 60s pop star trilogy in the way that Nebraska
Yes.
and Tom Joad and Devils and Dust was his folksy trilogy, if you like. That's how I see
Oh,
it.
I like that. Yeah.
Some of those kind of they overlapped. Devils and
Yes.
Dust, I think, came between The Rising and
Hmm.
Magic. I lose track
Yeah.
of it a bit, but something like that. I was very, it was very noticeable, particularly on Work on the Dream, that Springsteen changed his vocal delivery as well, which was nice. I like a change.
Yeah.
Gone was the more rocky, gruff vocal,
Yeah.
or the mumbly, kind of Dylan-y vocal of his folksy albums, to have more of a Roy Orbison-y, a higher, smoother vocal. And he did it well. And I think we've seen that
Yeah.
in a couple of others as well. So that the first overall impression was quite nice. And I liked, as I said, the optimism after perhaps the more difficult Magic. I liked Magic very much. Of course, it's
Yeah.
a classic, but it had a little bit more of a pessimistic angle. And I liked
Right.
what I would suggest as a bittersweet positivity of the actual Working on a Dream, which kind of foreshadowed Letter to You with some of the aspects of aging that he talks
Hmm.
about. There are some criticisms I'll make, some minor criticisms. The first one I would show the audience if it wasn't a podcast, but
That's
I've got
okay.
this.
I'm going to show this video as well. So good.
I've got the CD. I bought it on CD. I do
Okay.
have a lot of his on vinyls. I have his on vinyls and CD, the same albums.
Okay.
But this one I have on, and if you look, it's torn.
Oh, it sure is.
Not, and that's partly because I play it a lot, but also
Hmm.
because I can't get my fingers easily into the cardboard. So in order to do that, it's ended up ripping the cardboard. So there's a kind of non-musical complaint. The producer, I think he did all three of the what I call the 60s pop star albums, Brendan O'Brien.
Yes.
I, I found I loved the E Street Band very much, but I found he
Yeah.
pushed them a little bit into the background of the album.
Okay.
I knew what he was doing. It was a kind of a 60s Phil Spectory feel with strings and choirs and doo-wops and such, which is really good. I'd like a bit more on That's Life. There's a jangly, Birds type sound, which is just a little bit too deep in the mix. I want to hear that rise from
Sure.
Steve Benz and Niels Lofgren, and it's a little bit cluttered. That's the only. So there's a kind of criticism, not musically, but
Hmm.
in terms of the delivery, which was far crisper in albums like The River and the later Letter to You. There was a
Yeah.
crisper street band sound. I know he was looking for 60s, but I liked that. I like to hear the E Street Band front and center. I think it's a package.
Yeah. And I know that a couple of songs felt Brian Wilson-ish 60s
Yeah.
pet sound smile feel,
Oh,
right? Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely like that. And sometimes call it, say, cluttered or muddy
Yeah.
in the production.
Yeah.
I like that 60s sound. I just wanted, you didn't have to reproduce it exactly. This is Bruce and the E Street Band, and I wanted to hear Clarence's sax. I wanted Roy Bittan right up there with his tinkling piano and such.
I think that is one of the reasons why that at times people they do not embrace this as much. And the story we've heard is that with Letter to You, someone, and I can't remember who, but reached out and said, "Hey, can we not do beat the demos? We come in there, you've already done a demo, and then we have to do better than that, or you're just going to do that." And you saw in the Letter to You documentary, and I take all of it with a grain of thought that I realize that they know they're being filmed and there could be some change. But the idea of seeing them with legal pads and pens or pencils,
Yeah,
listening to Bruce play and them writing, "Oh, this is what I could do," I think helps the feel of. I told Maureen Van Zant when I talked to her, Letter to You felt like they it was a big sleepover, right? They all brought their sleeping bags and they brought a bunch of chips and crisp and some beer and they just all just had a fun time recording. So yeah, I absolutely agree with that.
yeah, that was a good film, and I would endorse that completely. I hadn't heard that someone said let's not beat the demo,
Yeah.
but if someone said it, and I guess it probably would be someone like Steve Van Zandt,
Yeah.
then then it worked
Yeah,
very much.
exactly. Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, with kind of my minor criticisms out the way, what I'd like to do is to touch on a couple of the songs that I thought worked, but ones that took a bit of a hit in terms of some of the criticisms. And I'm going to
Okay.
kick off with Outlaw Pete,
Okay.
because I think this is one that's in the UK. I don't know if we have a product called Marmite, and you either love it or you hate it because it
Hmm.
tastes very strong. And I think Outlaw Pete's a Marmite one, but my belief on this is because it's perhaps misunderstood. I like
Okay.
it very I like it very much, and I like the
Hmm.
way it kicks off the album with those kind of mass staccato strings
Yeah.
sound. Gives a nice kind of crisp beat in a minor
Hmm.
key, so it's kind of there's some kind of melancholy there as well. I feel that it's a link. These are my opinions, but I feel like it's a link between Magic and this album, in so much as my take on Outlaw Pete is it's more than just a cowboy story. It's it's a commentary on Springsteen's view of the George Bush era and that
Yeah.
kind of thing. And in fact, as with many songs, I do research and I found something he said, which he mentioned. It's about you can't escape the past and the references and that kind of thing, and you live with that past.
Mhm.
And that he believed that he didn't actually say it was about Bush administration, but he said in the same breath that they were historically blind administration, and we see that from a lot of politicians.
Yeah.
And I think it's far more powerful than a simple story of Springsteen's love of cowboys, and I think it's misunderstood.
If I could, Craig Colby, a writer from Canada and producer, was one of my guests, and we had a bunch of writers discussing what is Bruce Springsteen's best written song. and everyone brought 3 to 5 songs. And
Hmm.
he brought Outlaw Pete.
Interesting.
And he said the reason why is that I'm Outlaw Pete. Can you hear me? He said it's the same lyrics, but it's a different context each time he sings it. It has a different meaning, it
Yeah.
has a different view. And he says, I understand it's not Highway Patrolman or Thunder Road, but he says, I think we should at least acknowledge the complexity of that he's doing. I've never been an Outlaw Pete fan, and this is going to sound silly, till I bought the children's book.
Oh, yeah.
And when I bought the children's book and read it with the illustration, I liked it a lot more.
Oh, really? I've not read the book actually. I
Yeah,
thought it
it,
was a
it is.
children's book.
Yeah, it is a children's book, and it is all the lyrics. That's it. There's nothing extra, but the
Okay.
illustrations are absolutely beautiful. And it gives me, so I think If I Was the Priest is a better Western song than Outlaw Pete, but I do think that it is. I know that, and I think you're perfect. The, it's to use a more American, it's pineapple on your pizza. You either
Okay.
think
Yeah.
that's the most hideous
Okay.
thing ever in the world, or no, pineapple and ham on a pizza is genius. It just truly is, right? There is no middle ground.
It's a funny story. Just to sidetrack a bit, my wife
Yeah.
is from Argentina. I was in Argentina once, and I asked for ham on my pizza, and the restaurant and my wife took in a deep breath for, I think, for the reasons you just said. So I
Yeah.
understand the analogy completely.
That's funny. Yeah. So that is awesome. The so what other songs do you want to let's explore a little bit?
But the next one I'm going to pick up is the other one that's heavily criticized, which is you're going to guess it, Queen of the Supermarket.
Yes.
Again, a song I absolutely adore.
Really?
Uh, yeah, yeah, I love this song. It feels so 60s British rock pop song to me, and it's
Okay.
so nostalgic. And I would go so far as to say that if you think about it, if you remember Manfred Mann's Pretty Flamingo,
Yes.
I feel that the hook, Queen of the Supermarket and Pretty Flamingo, are of the same type. So I feel a connection in that way that in terms of the tune and the way it's structured, it's very mid 60s British pop, which I know that Springsteen liked.
Yeah.
He doesn't sing it that way. He sings it more in an Orbison style, which is also
Yes.
great.
Sure.
But, but I like it from that perspective. And also, the reason I bring up Pretty Flamingo as well is, in fact, the story. If you know the song, yeah, I suppose that most people would know that.
Yeah, in fact, no, I was lucky enough to have the writer of Pretty
Oh,
Flamingo on the show
and I was gonna,
multiple years ago. He was very interesting. Talked about that he was frustrated in a fun way that Bruce never put it on an album. He loved Bruce's version. He
yeah,
loved that he did it, but he said, I just wish he could have put it on an album once.
I
But
think it
yeah,
would be great if it had done on his covers album, or maybe the
yeah,
next covers album. It would
yeah.
be a great song to do. Is
Remind me, I'll send you the
yeah.
link to the interview. He was a lovely
Oh,
man.
please,
Yeah,
please. That's he's
yeah.
not with us anymore, I believe.
No, in fact, we after he passed, and it's a friend of his, a relative through marriage is the one that connected us. And so when he died, we joined again and talked about it.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'll send you the link. It's just,
please
yeah,
send
yeah, I think that's so well done. And it is when you look at it from that perspective, that does make it a little you see where it's coming from, right?
you see where it's coming from.
Yeah,
Even the lyrics are pretty superficial level of Queen of the Supermarket,
yeah,
which I'll come to. Pretty Flamingo is about a woman who everyone called Flamingo because she was tall and attractive,
yeah.
and the singer falls in love with her and plans to win her affection. So superficially, very high level, it's even the same plot. So,
Yeah.
I just feel he probably got some inspiration from that. It's just my personal view.
Yeah, I like that. The idea that's his, his version of that.
The other thing I picked up in the song, and I know that Paul McCartney often said he writes the lyrics with a particular meaning, but hey, it's fantastic if someone else sees something else in it that works for them. So this works for me, and I throw it out there, and it may work for some and not for the others. But one of the observations I've sometimes made when I've annoyingly had to go to a large supermarket or a shopping center is that
Hmm.
sometimes people go there because they've got nothing else to do, or they wander around and they're quite fascinated by the shops and the things on show. And I feel also that the song is a metaphor for that type of approach where people are fascinated and feel in a safe environment, but are fascinated by the variety and the products and the models and that kind of thing. And it's in some ways a safe, warm environment to spend some time and dream. And I feel it's about that as well. And if you look at the words, he kicks off, there's a wonderful world where all you desire and everything you've longed for is at your fingertips. The bittersweet taste of life, I'm reading this, bittersweet taste of life is at your lips and isles of dreams await you. So I think it's superficially a love song about this queen of the supermarket who works at a shopping till, but it has a broader message, which I also read that Bruce wrote after visiting a supermarket in New Jersey and made the same observation himself.
What's interesting, if you think about it, is if you put yourself in a context of we are so blessed to be, if we're not in, and I don't mean this condescending, like a modern society. The joke first world problems, right? But the
Yeah,
idea that there is all this food there, just everything you could desire is there.
I feel it as well.
Yeah, and we take it for granted often.
Yeah, I mean, after this, I'm going to the supermarket. I need some ginger. I think, now, what do I get? Do I get the chopped ginger in a jar that's prepared, or do I get the ginger paste? Or should I just get fresh ginger? I don't know. I don't know. I'm still confused. And
Yeah,
it's that kind of message.
yeah, I think that's well done. Sure. Okay. Good.
So I like Queen of the Supermarket.
Okay.
The next one I'm going to talk about is This Life. We spoke about it a bit before,
Yeah.
and you quite in a prescient way brought up the Pet Sounds.
Yes.
And I certainly feel that the first 10 seconds of this, if it was played to anybody who knew about 60s music, particularly, and would say, "Where's this from?" And they go, "I think that must be from Pet Sounds, but I don't remember it." It
Yes.
sounds like a Beach Boys introduction. And if you asked Brian Wilson to sing a cover, then it sounds like his melody as well. So I think this is a pastiche exactly of Bruce.
I loved you said that because I've often said Girls in Their Summer Clothes is a grown-up Beach Boy song. When I heard that, I loved it. I just loved everything about it. And then when I heard this live, I went, wait a minute, maybe I've gotten the wrong Bruce song that is the homage to the Beach Boys. And I think both can be. I think both can be
Yeah, why not?
that idea. But no, I am so happy you said that because I I've always felt that way, Alex. I've always thought that it could fit on a Pet Sounds or a Brian Wilson album during that, whether it's anything that he was doing in that era with Surf's Up or yeah, so
It works
absolutely I
there as
agree.
well.
Yeah. Hmm.
It works there as
Yeah.
well. Even to they've got like a backing singers going bah,
Yes.
a bit like the Barbara Ann thing and all that.
Yeah.
And also lyrically, I think we start to see where he was going with Letter to You because I feel the song is a reflective song about where we go when we die, or
Hmm.
where so he's reflecting on life and what's called this life and where we end up. So I like the depth of the reflection as well on the song.
Hmm.
And of course, we all love the Beach Boys, so I don't have any problem with
No,
the
absolutely.
parody, if you like.
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, I'm gonna I've probably got a couple more I just want to flip through.
Sure, please,
I
Alex.
want, I want to talk about The Last Carnival,
Okay.
which is, I know it's the last song, but it's not the last song. I'm going to call it the last song because I think The Wrestler is like a bolt-on bonus,
Yes, I
um,
agree.
which it doesn't fit, but I'm glad I've got it on there because I like the song.
Yeah,
Even if it's a little bit of a reworking of One Step Up, it's a great song.
yeah.
Now, I'm sure you know about The Wrestler, which is, sorry, The Last Carnival is
Hmm.
a eulogy to Danny Federici.
Yes.
There's lots of people write eulogies, but what I like about this one is the way he links it back to Wild Billy's Circus from, well, I forgot the name of the album now, second album.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wild.
Wild and the Innocent and the Easily
Yes.
Done. So my mind went blank. And the fact that Danny Federici, I think, played a harmonium or something, or the
Yeah.
accordion on that track. And I found it quite a moving way to finish an album, which is rather than celebratory and a big bang, he finishes on quite a moving eulogy to Danny Federici. And I like the lyrics and the way he talks about the trains left without Billy and this kind of thing. I found that quite a moving song and quite powerful as well.
Yeah.
His lost bandmate. So that's one I wanted to bring up in terms of if anyone says it's lightweight and it lacks depth, and I think I've proved, or in my opinion, it's
Yes.
more than that. I think this one really cements that in the mind.
Absolutely. I like Working on a Dream. I think it's a really fun song. I think also because of it he played it on the Super Bowl.
Saw
Yeah.
that on the video.
And
Yeah,
then surprise with the story he says that it's one of the few songs he woke up in the middle of the night and knew and remembered. He says usually when you have a
yeah,
song in the middle of the night, it's garbage and the next morning.
yes, yeah.
And this one he might say some people might this is too, but I thought it was pretty good. So yeah, I think very well done. Are there any songs that don't work for you?
I would say I like the album. I know that Good Eye is an unusual one that seems to stand out a little in
Yeah.
the middle. And I feel like it jars in terms of the flow for the album,
Yeah.
since you asked the question. I like the song and I like the kind of, it sounds like something from the old chess records
Yeah.
or recorded in 1920 bluesy type thing. So I like that. I'm not sure it wouldn't have fitted better on High Hopes,
Hmm.
perhaps. From a theme, that one just came out of nowhere. I like the song.
Yeah.
It came halfway through and it was a little jarring with the flow.
Yeah.
Is what I'd say. Like the
Hmm.
song. It's interesting that I read somewhere that the Night with the Jersey Devil, which was a download, I believe, or a B-side or something,
Yeah.
was also due to be on the album, which isn't a million miles in terms of sound from Good Eye. But they pulled it at the last minute for reasons I don't know.
Okay.
But it's a similar style. Maybe they should have pulled Good Eye and put it elsewhere. I like the song, as I said, but I didn't think it went with the flow.
Yeah.
But it's interesting you mentioned Surprise because I thought again, if you put Paul McCartney's voice on that and Ringo's drums, it sounds like it was a track from Help or something like that.
Yeah.
You know?
Hmm.
So again, we had a very 60s feel. As we did
Hmm.
with Life Itself, sounds like to me that he'd been listening to 8 Miles High and then
Yeah.
decided to do his own version.
I like that. Good. Okay.
Yeah, my complaint on that is going back to the production is that you got Steve Van Zandt and Niels Lofgren's beautiful jangly guitars too far down in the mix. And if you bring them up, you've got even more of a bird's sound. But again, I like the backwards guitar, which then again reminds me of the Beatles from the Revolver period and
Hmm.
things like that. So I really like that glance back in the rearview mirror of what we had in the 60s very much. And I think that last one, Life Itself, is a classic take on what was really good about 60s rock bands and rock music
Yeah.
with the Byrds slight um,
Yeah.
beatly feel to them. And again, a theme about getting to grips with the aging process and how you grow old with your loved one foreshadows the later letter to you. So he's clearly been thinking about this kind
Yeah,
of
for
stuff.
a while. And I think you could argue Wrecking Ball itself, the title track,
Yeah,
is originally was, it's about a stadium coming down, but it's also how you deal with age. And
yeah,
I think that hold tight to your anger, don't fall to your fears, and hard times come, hard times go. Yeah, I think I remember being very young, relatively young. I was in my early 30s, and my stepfather was visiting, and he was in his 60s, maybe even a little older. And I mentioned to Linda, he seems to talk about death a lot, right?
yeah,
And I talked to someone, and someone said, as you reach and the road in front of you is shorter than the road behind you, it's not that it's a morbid thought, it's just the reality. And so I do think that Bruce, as he starts going, and he's lost multiple people he
yeah,
adores, his longtime assistants Terry, and then Clarence and Danny, and Office and Letter to You about all the band members that he had lost, and all the contemporaries, Prince, Tom Petty, David
yeah,
Bowie,
yeah,
that it
yeah.
is hard not to think about that. So yeah, I think really insightful of your part. Any final thoughts before we move on?
Just to say that it was good to be able to put my propaganda forward as to why this is a misunderstood album. I've done it in writing a couple of years ago on the Medium platform as my in my writer format. So when you asked for people to talk about albums, I thought I know what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to put my case forward for another misunderstood album. Um, there are probably one or two others of his, but particularly the Human Touch. And but
Yes.
this was probably my favorite of the misunderstood albums that I wanted to promote.
I am so glad you did. I actually had two people choose to talk Lucky Town.
Oh,
And
really?
so,
Yeah.
yes. So, yeah. So there is that. I think there is that feeling now that there's been some time, the more love for the other band, that era, right?
I would agree, and I would put myself in that camp as well. In that, when they came out to start with, I was a little disappointed because I wanted the river and darkness and things like that,
Yes.
and I didn't get it. Uh, I think I got it in terms of the song quality is very high, but I didn't get that sound I was after. But it was over time going back that I thought, "Oh, you know what? Bruce is like many artists. He's ahead of us in that game. That's why he's as he is." And he saw something and he delivered something that I missed.
I think really well said. Said. Alex, this was so much fun. Thank you so much for joining
Enjoyed
me.
it a lot.
If someone wants to reach you, please tell us how, and what do you got coming up in the medium? Or do you have
Right.
anything in the that you're working on?
Oh, yeah. I'll keep it short
That's
because
okay.
I'm never. The best way to contact me, I'm on multiple social media platforms. I write on Medium and Substack as by Alex Markham, all one word.
Okay.
Principally because there are other Alex Markhams and it got confusing, so it's just by Alex Markham. So they can find me on Medium and Substack if they want to see my writing as that. I use the same handle for Instagram, Threads, Facebook,
Okay.
not my personal Facebook, but my writing Facebook's a different.
Okay.
Yeah. So if they want to contact me or look at some of my work, they can see that. I've got, I'm trying to build up the Substack business, which is fairly recent for me.
Okay.
And I've got three or four novels part written, which I've never finished any of them. But my friends are telling me to put out something in the rock theme, more of a non-fiction. So something's going to happen next year. I just need to
Okay.
pin down which one I'm going to focus on.
When you're ready to promote it, reach out. We will do this again.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just thank you so much, Alex. Listeners, as we've talked about during this 30 days and we focused on an album, I'm going to as suggest as I always do, clear your mind, open your heart, put in that release whether it's vinyl, CD, online, and listen to it with fresh minds and fresh ears and enjoy the idea there is going to be a time where we will not get new Bruce music. Hopefully, that is decades in the future, but go back to that time and remember that, and hopefully, you'll find a new appreciation for this album. Alex, thank you so much for joining me again. I always love talking to you. Listeners, I'm going to include the link to his Substack and to his Medium. Go check out the writings. But for now, I want everyone to be safe, be kind, and we'll talk to you soon. Goodbye.
Right.
We're out. Hey, send me a link to the
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Substack and the Medium, and I will include that in the notes, okay?
Should I do that on the Facebook Messenger or on
Yeah, that's
email?
fine. Facebook
That's fine.
Messenger's
Okay.
fine. Yeah, either one's fine. That works, okay?
Okay. Thank you very much, then. Great
Thank
to
you,
talk.
Alex.
You know
Oh, it
what?
was great talking to you too.
I don't get to talk enough Springsteen, so therefore, once you give me the medium, I'm off.
We will do it again. That sounds good. Thank you,
Sounds
buddy.
great.
See you later.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.